Hello, my name is Pooja. Welcome to a new episode of Around the World. Recently, the ASEAN Summit was held in Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia. ASEAN countries hold meetings twice a year, but after the COVID-19 pandemic, these countries are now meeting only once a year. On behalf of India, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar participated in the ASEAN Summit. President Joe Biden attended the ASEAN Summit on behalf of the US. On the one hand, India-ASEAN completed 30 years of their friendship, while on the other hand, US-ASEAN completed 10 years of their relationship. India-ASEAN relations are the central pillar of India's Act East policy, while ASEAN also appears to be an arena of diplomatic maneuvering between the US and China. Although ASEAN countries have been unhappy with US policies in the past, but Joe Biden wants to strengthen the US holds in this region again. In such a scenario, a significant question arises that whether the diplomatic bet of the US will be successful in the region where China wants to dominate. The second question arises, what are the interests of India in this region? Has India been able to consolidate its hold in this region? Notably, the ASEAN countries are also considered the Indo-Pacific countries, and the interests of both the US and India lie in the Indo-Pacific region. The Southeast Asia region lies to the east of India. ASEAN is a regional organization of 10 countries in the Southeast Asia region. ASEAN has 10 members, namely Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Brunei, Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia. These countries are the countries of the Indo-Pacific region, which is quite cardinal from the strategic point of view. The South China Sea also lies in the Indo-Pacific region, and these countries are troubled by the intrusive activities and aggressive attitudes of China in the South China Sea. The Secretariat of ASEAN is located in Jakarta, Indonesia. ASEAN represents a population of about 700 million. Southeast Asia is eyed by both the US and China. China shows its dominance in the South China Sea, while the US tries to curb China's dominance in the Indo-Pacific. ASEAN countries have been affected the most by the aggressive foreign policy of Chinese President Xi Jinping. On the contrary, the US used to dominate this region at one point of time. But now the US dominance in this region has become a thing of the past. In such a scenario, as China is getting stronger in the Asia-Pacific region, US troubles are also surmounting. In recent years, China has tried all kinds of ways to increase its dominance in the Asia-Pacific region. It has signed major agreements with Southeast Asia countries, including trade and military cooperation. In response, the US has also increased its diplomatic activities in this region. About 2 decades ago, the US had a stronghold in Southeast Asia. However, after 2000, when China's position in the global market increased, then the US dominance in this region decreased. It was the period when the US was mainly focusing on the Middle East. But now the US is focusing on Southeast Asia. Actually, some Southeast Asian countries are pro-China, while some Southeast Asian countries are pro-US. Cambodia, Malaysia, and Thailand are strongly aligned with China, while the Philippines, Singapore, and Vietnam are crucial political and security partners of the US. However, the challenges of this region have also increased due to the increasing tensions between China and the US. Therefore, ASEAN countries accuse the US and China of making this region a battleground. Recent events suggest that the debate is likely to intensify in the years to come, with ASEAN at the center. One of these events is the establishment of Quad, which includes India and Australia, Japan and the United States, the 3 Pacific region countries. Actually, there are many challenges in front of ASEAN to deal with, and it needs the help of superpowers of the world. In such a situation, these countries can benefit from US support. But the issue is that China is very powerful economically as well as militarily. Furthermore, China is also economically important for all these small and medium ASEAN countries. Therefore, some ASEAN countries are not happy with the US stance on China. All these countries believe that they do not need to get involved in the war between China and the US, nor will they benefit from it. As has been already mentioned above, China is important for these small and medium ASEAN countries from the economic point of view. Yet all these countries are troubled by China's aggressive attitude in the South China Sea. These countries know that only the superpowers of the world can solve the looming Chinese threat, and they also want their cooperation. According to the kind of politics going on in the global fraternity at present, the US is the only country that can support these countries because the China-US conflict is known to all. But the ASEAN countries are unable to trust the US due to historical reasons. Things get worse for the US when it tries to use these countries to further its strategic interests. After fulfilling its interests, the US leaves these countries in a dilapidated condition. If the US wants the ASEAN countries to trust it, then it will have to do something significant on the economic trade front, as ASEAN is highly dependent on China in terms of economy. These countries are unable to oppose China even if they want to. On the other hand, the US should not make a move that makes these countries feel they are being used as a shield for attacking China. However, the US has taken a good decision in the interest of ASEAN by establishing the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Apart from the US, ASEAN countries and India are also members of the organization. The establishment of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework is a good step in favor of ASEAN. If the US manages to reduce the economic dependence of these countries on China, then it will be a big deal for ASEAN. Since America and India are major partners of the Quad and China is a common rival of both the countries, in such a situation, if the ASEAN countries succeed, then it will also be a success of the Look East policy. Now, let us try to understand why ASEAN is important from India's point of view. ASEAN is considered one of the most influential groupings in Southeast Asia. Apart from India, countries like America, China, Japan, and Australia are its dialogue partners. ASEAN-India relations began in 1992 with the establishment of a regional partnership. Traditionally, the basis of India-ASEAN relations has been trade and people-to-people connectivity due to shared historical and cultural values. Both India and ASEAN aim to establish a rules-based security framework for peaceful development in the region in light of China's aggressive policies. Myanmar is the closest country to India among ASEAN countries. India and Myanmar share a border line of about 1650 kilometers. Hence, ASEAN is a very cardinal group for India due to security reasons. India also has bilateral trade relations with ASEAN countries. Connectivity with ASEAN countries can help India improve its presence in the region. These connectivity projects have been designed keeping in mind Northeast India, and these projects will ensure the economic development of the northeastern states. Better trade relations with ASEAN countries mean that India's economic growth and development will increase, and it will also be able to curb China's dominance in the region. As much of India's trade is dependent on maritime security, therefore ASEAN occupies a cardinal place in the security framework of the Pacific. Not only America, but India also has to think big for these small countries on the trade and economic front. On the other hand, they also need to be provided security from China's arbitrariness in the South China Sea. If this happens, not only will India's relations with ASEAN countries be stronger, but these countries will also get relief from China's aggressive policies. Now let's look at the question, what are the reasons for China-US rivalry in Southeast Asia? What kind of steps will have to be taken jointly by India and the US to stop China's dominance in this region?